And here we go. Okay, so let's say that you want to, you've already scheduled your exam, and let's say you've taken it. It usually takes somewhere between 48 hours to 7 days for them to turn the score around. If it's a professional exam, it can take like 10 days. So you just kind of have to check. But if you go in as if you're going to schedule an exam and you sign in, and you get signed into the system and all that, when you sign in and you get to the search metrics site, which you just told me click like 7 times because that's just the way it works. Let's see. I think it's under previous exams. Yeah. So under previous exams, you can actually go down to your score report and you can actually download your report. So what was my professional score? Let's go take a look. And what will happen is that you'll actually download your report, and they will tell you exactly how well you did. So like this one, I got an 871, right? And they'll mention what is passing and all that. And then they usually tell you how you did, right? So, I think in general, I did okay for that. That's a pretty rough exam actually. So, and I've taken it several times. So, but that's where you go. Is you just go to previous exams and then go to score report and then download, and they'll basically tell you your report in question. So just want to make sure you are aware of that. And of course, if you're signed up for an upcoming exam, you should obviously see this showed up in whatever you've got scheduled. But I think we went through this already, so I think you're all comfortable with signing up as far as the Pearson VUE and the online and all those pieces. So does anyone have any burning questions about anything in particular that they wanted to talk about or dive into, or anything that they've run into before we actually just go straight into exam practice? No? Okay. So just to ask with the larger audience, is there anybody else signed up for the test currently that has it already scheduled? Okay, and is there anybody other than Tom that's taken it? Okay, no worries there. I just wanted to check and make sure. Okay, so let's go do some review mode exams. And I don't know that we've done 2. Let's go check and see. Since I didn't say continue, doesn't look like we have. Okay. All right, same standards apply. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending if it's multiples, obviously, put those in there. Company uses AWS and decouple from their on-premise data center, they will be able to have which of the following benefits? So if you decouple from your on-premise data center, what are the benefits according to AWS? Because remember, there's the right answer, there's the wrong answer, and then there's AWS's answer, right? This one could be tricksy. Let's see, deferred payments to their operational expenditures. I don't know about that one. I don't think you get to defer payments to your operational expenditures. Decrease your total cost of ownership. That seems possible, right? Replace low variable costs with upfront capital expenses. No, no, that's not. No, matter of fact, it's the other way around. Reduce time to market. Well, now that you're not waiting for hardware, that could make sense, right? And then massive discounts for bare metal servers from Amazon.com. No. If that was the case, I probably would have ordered a bunch of them. So let's say decrease. I see a couple people have posted items as well. I'm going to go with the most frequent one, 2 to 4. And there it is, right? Because no more hardware boundaries, because Amazon has to deal with that. And your total cost of ownership should go down because all of your operational overhead, even if you just use infrastructure as a service, is reduced. So total cost of ownership should go down. All right. Any questions about that? Which of the following provides software solutions that are either hosted on or integrated with the AWS platform, which may include independent software vendors, SaaS, PaaS, developer tools, management, security vendors? So this is interesting because it's kind of a marketing question a little bit. And oddly enough, I don't know that how many people actually deal with these guys actually, but think about what we know. So let's do process of elimination. Is that, by the way, I see this that Chris, you put an answer, and Nick put an answer as well. But we know it's not a TAM or concierge support because that's part of having support contracts. So that comes off. Now, we've got APN consulting partners, and then we've got APN technology partners. Just based on those words alone, I would assume that the technology partners would be the ones that would be providing like all the different like technologies, developer tools, security vendors. And I would assume that the consulting partners are consulting, right? That would be my assumption just based on the wordage, right? And so in this case, that would be correct, right? This is the technology partners provide software like technology, and the consulting partners provide services, which is not really software, right? So yeah. I don't know how many people get exposed to that, honestly. So I probably would have guessed it, like eliminated that, because I don't even know that I know off the top of my head those, the ISVs and the VARs and all that stuff, right? Any questions about how we arrived at that answer? Cool. All right, IT security team of company needs to conduct a vulnerability analysis on your app servers to ensure the EC2 instances comply with the annual security IT audit. You need to set up an automated security assessment service to improve the security and compliance of your apps. The solution should automatically assess applications for exposure, vulnerabilities, and deviations from Amazon's best practices. Which of the following would you implement to satisfy this requirement? Now, there's a couple of key things here. They want a vulnerability analysis, and they want it against EC2 instances. There's actually only one service that does the vulnerability analysis against EC2 instances. So good, yeah. So it's Inspector. So Inspector will do a network-based, and if you put an agent on it, it will do a host-based analysis, right? The rest of these have nothing to do with security except for WAF, which is like a web application firewall, but they're not going to do a vulnerability assessment. So this is literally just a straight up service no. Like, do you know the service or do you not? Right? Any questions about how we arrived at that answer? Okay. Of course, I'm over there like, wouldn't that be horrible if I was like completely wrong and I just gave that whole explanation and it was like not correct? Anyway, which of the following actions below will allow you to take advantage of volume discounts in AWS, right? Which means that the more usage you have, the cheaper they give you per unit, right? So yeah, there's a couple of things, by the way, that we know are not going to give you volume discounts. Like obviously going to an enterprise support plan, which is going to cost you a percentage of your spend, that's not going to cheapen anything, right? Opt for an all upfront convertible reserve instance plan for 3 years. That's going to give you discounts, but that's not volume discounts, right? The only thing that gives volume discounts is consolidation of multiple accounts into one account. Now, just to say this, there's no such thing as a single global account. So number 4 is out, right? But there is such a thing as AWS organizations. And when you use organizations, it does enable consolidated billing. Now, one thing to know is that you can enable consolidated billing outside of organizations, but I see that people put answers there, right? And that's the right answer, is organizations is really the thing to go. You could enable consolidated billing without it, but most people just turn on organizations. Oh, that picture's not working. That's too bad. Any questions about how we arrived at that answer? Okay. I'm going to stop asking that and just assume you're going to speak up while I pause there. Okay. Which service would you use to speed up content delivery to your customers? Now, you might say to yourselves, I don't know, but they use very key words here. They use content delivery. Just so you know, Amazon only has one service that is a content delivery network. And that's an industry standard term, by the way, that has nothing to do with AWS. Akamai, Fastly, Cloudflare, right? Those are all content delivery networks that exist outside of AWS. So there's only one service here. So this is purely a service. Do you know the service play? Which I see answers in there, right? And CloudFront is the content delivery network service. That's the only one. There is no other. Yep. Okay. Agility is one of the benefits of using cloud computing that provides customers with what advantage? Hmm. Huh. So this one's interesting. I'm like looking at this one going, well, this one's not super obvious, but let's go ahead. One, we noticed it didn't have to do anything with over provisioning. So avoiding over provisioning, that's not what agility is about. Allowing you to trade CapEx for variable expense, that doesn't seem like that refers to agility. Now these last two, right? Basically says easily deploy your application in multiple physical locations around the world with a few clicks. That's pretty agile, actually. The ability to just like knock that out, like to be flexible. The other thing is to focus your valuable IT resources on developing apps that differentiate your business rather than managing infrastructure and data centers. That doesn't necessarily seem like agility, although there's a lot of agility and inherent in the statement. So let's go with 3, right? And oddly enough, it's 4, right? So that's why I was kind of questioning 3 and 4 there, because I didn't know where Amazon was headed with that. But let's see what they say here. So their definition of agility is basically, look, you get to focus on things that are core differentiators to your business. You know, like just as an example, if you're an insurance company, being good at running servers is actually not a core differentiator, right? But, you know, obviously being able to do computational against, you know, generating actuarial tables, that's actually pretty big useful, right? Or whatever other things that are relevant for insurance business. So in this case, they are like referring to that ability to hone and focus on just what's core for your business. I don't know that I would have gotten this one right, honestly. I would have been stuck between 3 or 4, and I probably would have guessed on about which one. But go global in minutes is one of their core things. They mention this a lot, so I probably would have thought of that as a different like facet, because they do talk about agility, elasticity, cost savings, you know, trading OPEX for, you know, CapEx for OPEX, that kind of thing. But this one was a little tougher. Yeah, enough said. A website is experiencing varying levels of traffic throughout the day and is not fully consuming server capacity all the time. Which advantage does AWS Cloud provide over traditional data centers when it comes to handling traffic load? So this is probably like one of the cloud concepts, right? In the sense of like, what is the core concept that allows you to accommodate varying levels of traffic, right? And it's not fully consuming server capacity all the time. So what's one of the core advantages that Amazon talks about that actually allows you to adapt to this, right? And let's see, I think I see people, yeah, posting one, right? And this is really the secret sauce, right? Is elasticity. That's the thing that allows you to adapt, like to changing demand. Yeah. Okay. Blank is a cloud design principle which supports growth in users, traffic, or data size with no drop in performance. Which one of these deals with the ability to stay ahead of demand, like just stay just ahead of demand, right? Scalability. Good. I see a bunch of 4s there. So we're going to go for that. Good. One of the core abilities, right? Staying with demand as it goes up and down. Okay. Which service will allow you to sell your catalog of custom AMIs in AWS? Ooh, that's interesting. Sell your catalog of custom AMIs in AWS. Where can you go to buy other people's software out of these services? Where can you go to buy other people's software? Like if you wanted a Fortinet firewall or a Checkpoint firewall on your system and you didn't want to roll your own and you wanted to buy from the vendor, which of these services will allow you to go find the vendor and buy officially from them because they've published an image that you can use on AWS? So I see a bunch of you answered, right? As far as the marketplace. Service catalog allows you to take your stuff and kind of make it available to your users internally, like CloudFormation templates and other services. So you don't sell to your own users. You might build them, just so you know, but like you don't sell that, right? Mechanical Turk is actually used to get people to do manual stuff on AWS that you actually pay for. Things like, pushing the button or doing image analysis or whatnot. Don't get me wrong, there's services for that as well, but this is where you get people to do it. And then Cloud Search is actually, it used to be Solar. I don't know if it's still Solar, but it's a search solution that really nobody uses because Elasticsearch is like 100 times better. So that being my opinion, of course. But Marketplace is the right answer. Okay, what's the best type of instance purchasing option to choose if you will run an EC2 instance for 3 months to perform a job that is uninterruptible? So a job that can't be interrupted, which automatically eliminates Spot out of the equation, right? You're only going to run it for 3 months. So that eliminates reservations, right? So then what's the most cost-effective option? Because that's what they're applying here, right? And basically what we're left with is on demand, because dedicated is the most expensive way to use AWS. And is only used for basically security options. Good. So if that's clear, when it says uninterruptible, that instantly negates Spot. If it says basically less than like 8 to 6 months, you're not going to look at reserved instances. It actually needs to be a year or 3 years, right? And then if it said, hey, we have stringent licensing requirements, we need to be on the same host, or we need to isolate our hosts or instances, then dedicated would be your answer. Otherwise, the answer is on demand. Which of the following are the characteristics of Amazon EC2 convertible reserved instances? Okay, so this is good, because this requires you to understand a little bit about the characteristics of convertible reserved instances. So what's the difference between convertible and reserved instances, between standard reserved instances? Sorry, police are driving by. Standard reserved instances and convertible reserved instances, right? So if we think about the words standard and convertible, we automatically know that because it's labeled convertible, there's some level of mutability to it, of changeability, right? So if we look at these options, I see someone posted 2 and 3, right? So it definitely allows for change. I think that's appropriate. So let's look at these. Provides the most significant discount and are best suited for steady state usage. I don't know about 75%. That sounds like standard, honestly. Allows a change of instance, family, operating system, tenancy, and payment option. I think that's right, but the payment option one is throwing me off. Has the capability to change the attributes of the RI as long as the exchange results in the creation of reserved instances of equal or greater value? No way. No way it's of greater value. It might be of lesser value, but it's not going to be of greater value, right? So notice that these two are pretty much the same, right? Allows you to match your capacity reservation to a predictable recurring schedule. No, that's a scheduled reserve instances. That's what this is right here. That's a scheduled reserve instance, not a standard reserve instance, not a convertible reserve instance. So, equal or greater value is probably not, right? So let's see if I'm right, if my reasoning is correct. Oh, I was wrong. Let's find out why. Okay, so we know that this first one is right as far as operating system, tenancy, and payment options. So just because I was a little squirrely about payment options didn't make it wrong, right? But let's find out. All right, so convertible reserved instances, blah, 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 allows you to combine, da, 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 da. Okay, so discounts, 54%. Okay, so you can change the attributes of the RI as long as the exchange results in the creation of reserved instances of equal or greater value. So let's think about that for a second. So if I've got 2 T2 smalls and I combine them and they make, oh, I see what they're saying. I got that backwards in my head, actually. If I take 2 T2 smalls, for example, let's say they have a point value of 2 apiece, and I want to make a medium, then what would happen is that, oh, that's weird. I don't know how to think about that, actually. Because what happens is that when you have convertible instances, each of the t-shirt sizes has a point value. And when you combine them, they have to be of equal or greater. Oh, that's why. They have to be equal or greater value. So for example, if I have 2 T2 smalls, which are worth 2 points, and I combine them and I want to go to a T2 medium, which by the way is only 3 points, but I put two T2 smalls together and that gives me 4 points, even though it's basically a greater value than the T2 medium, which is only 3 points to get there. So that's why it says greater. So I just had those wires crossed in my head. So what that means basically is that you can combine RIs as long as the total points of the RIs you're combining are equal to or greater than the size of instance that you're converting to. So let me state that again, just to make sure we're thinking about this the same way. Let's say I have two T2 mediums and they're worth 3 points apiece. I have two of them and I want to get to a large, which is, let's say, is 5 points. If I combine those two T2 mediums, which are worth 3 points apiece, to combine, that'll be 6 points, but I only need 5 to actually get to the large. So as long as the total point value is equal to or greater than what I'm trying to get to, then the RI works. So that's why it's of greater value. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody unclear on that? I would have gotten that one wrong just because I wasn't thinking about it. Okay, which are the pillars of the well-articulated framework? So there's two of these. So security, reliability, and cost optimization are not listed here. That's weird. Huh. So security, reliability, and cost optimization are not listed here, but the two of them actually are very clearly listed, right? And so here I see people put 4 and 5, performance, efficiency, and operational excellence. This is just a straight up no. Do you know the 5 pillars or do you not? And here they are listed. Okay. Good. A customer has a number of on-demand instances running simultaneously to serve customer transactions. Occasionally, most of these instances, sorry for the alarms. My windows are open because my AC has been broken for 2 days, so I apologize for the noise. Customer has a number of on-demand instances running simultaneously to serve customer transactions. Occasionally, most of these instances do not perform any tasks when demand is low. What is a good cost optimization strategy to implement for these cases? So typically the secret sauce to cost efficiency with EC2 instances, there's only 2 ways to go. One, if it can be interrupted, spot instances are your friend. But even with spot instances, just to say this, really the best way, even with spot instances, to actually control costs when it comes to EC2 is autoscaling. Autoscaling is actually the secret sauce, and you can make an autoscaling group that has spot instances with on-demand instances, and you can actually mix them together. So there's kind of a fleet kind of thing that happens. So autoscaling group really is going to be probably the right answer because that's the best option. So when you want to control costs for EC2, autoscaling is probably the best, unless it explicitly says the job can be interrupted, then you're going to look at spot as an answer. Okay. There's an incident with your team where an S3 object was deleted using an account without the owner's knowledge. What can be done to prevent unauthorized deletion of your S3 objects? Wow, there's a bunch of actually semi-decent options here. But Amazon really recommends one thing if you actually just want to prevent deletion. So I see a number of statements here, which I would agree with as far as how Amazon thinks about these things, is they want you to use MFA delete on the S3 bucket, or if it's accidental deletion, they want you to turn on versioning, which is another option that they say about a bucket. Just turn on versioning. That way, if it gets deleted, you just roll it back to the previous version. But these are the two things they say is MFA delete and multi-factor delete, right? Probably worth mentioning that MFA delete actually does turn on versioning. Yeah. Okay. Which of the following best practices describes the concept of the loose coupling design principle? First of all, 3 and 4 are out. Can we just knock those out? Increasing specifications, increase the number of resources. That didn't have anything to do with loose coupling or a coupling of any type, right? Coupling is about connecting two things together, right? And so loose coupling means let's keep it so that if one of the sides of the bridge falls, the other side doesn't fall, right? So, right, is that we want to make sure that our side stays up if that happens. So loose coupling, right, would be that a change or failure in one component should not cascade to the other components. That way, if you lose half your bridge, the other half stays up. Okay. Which service allows you to add powerful visual analysis features to your application to enable you to search, verify, and organize millions of images? Visual analysis feature to search, verify, and organize millions of images. This is a straight service play. Which of these actually does image analysis? I almost said the answer. Yeah. Recognition. That's what recognition is for. It does image recognition, right? That's what it's there for. Don't worry, there are other much more confusingly named services that will really throw you off in that whole portfolio, but that one happens to be fairly intuitive. Macy is a security service. SageMaker is basically a model training system, and then Cloud Search, which Cloud Search has shown up a lot. By the way, Cloud Search is pretty much not used, so I'm not really sure what it's there for, but it's a search solution. Most people use Elasticsearch, at least the ones I've encountered. Customer needs to establish a dedicated connection between on-prem and VPC, provides a more consistent network experience than internet-based connections. This is a pure service ask. Which of these is the service that provides a non-internet based connection? Because that's what they're basically asking for. So some people posted an answer, and the answer is Direct Connect. That's the one that literally runs a wire between your data center to a partner who then connects you over to AWS. So it's like a direct connection to AWS. Peering hooks two VPCs together that can be cross account. Cloud Hub allows you basically to do a bunch of VPN stuff, but that's over the internet, which doesn't meet the criteria. And a VPN connection, same thing. Customer needs to retrieve the instance ID public keys and public IP addresses of their EC2 instances. Which of the following should you use to get those details? This question is a little misleading because what they're really saying is the customer needs to retrieve it from inside the operating system. How do you retrieve information about an EC2 instance from inside the operating system? There really is only one answer for that, but it's kind of missing that key thing. They're asking you to infer it, right? Basically, which is basically instance metadata, right? This is something that you can get from inside the system. If you do a get or a curl, sorry, wget or a curl against this URL inside of any EC2 instance, you will get all of the metadata for the instance from inside the instance. This works for Windows, this works for Linux, this works for Mac OS. If you're on the command line and you type in curl and you curl this URL, it's going to give you the information about the instance that you're logged into, okay? Metadata. So just to make sure, this URL says metadata, meta-data. If it said user-data, that's a different set of data, but it says meta-data. This is instance metadata. Okay. Which service does AWS use to notify you when AWS is experiencing events that may impact you? It's a little confusing because there's a generic service health dashboard, right? And then there's a personal health dashboard. This is a notification system. And number 2, and support center, that's for tracking tickets and getting the information. So it's either a 1 or 4. But number 1 basically says, this is what's going on in the entire world. Number 4 says, this is where we're having a problem that might affect you. They call this PhD, which is kind of confusing, inside of Systems Manager. They don't actually even call it out as the personal health dashboard. What this means is that when AWS has an outage, which would show up on the service health dashboard, and it's affecting one of your resources that's running, it's going to show up on your personal health dashboard, and you can get notifications off of that. It looks like this, by the way. So it actually throws up events that say, hey, you've got this running and this might be an issue, but notice that it'll tell you what resources you have that are affected. If it's not affecting any of your resources, there'll be no affected resources listed in this column. But if you're running an EC2 instance, it's going to tell you which instance. If you're running a container or a Lambda, it's going to basically provide links to the services that are being impacted. And since it only does it on a per service basis, like if this was a Cognito problem, it would tell you which Cognito pool you were having problems with. If this was a CloudFormation issue, it would tell you which CloudFormation stack was giving you the problem. So you would see it over on the right-hand side. Okay, in EC2, which pricing construct adjusts its price based on supply and demand of EC2 instances? This is a straight up ask. Do you know the actual licensing models for EC2? That's what they're asking you here. So there's only one, by the way, that has variable pricing based on supply and demand. Spot instances are literally the only ones that are going to change price based on supply and demand. Okay. Which of the following is typically used to secure your VPC subnets? Not your EC2 instances, but your subnets. So I see 3 there. These are the only firewalls that operate at the subnet level, right? Don't get me wrong, security groups happen to systems that are inside of a subnet, but network ACLs operate at the subnet level. That's what they're there for. By the way, just to say this, most people leave the network ACLs alone unless they want to block somebody's IP address. So that's why you probably may not be using a whole lot of them. Which of the following policies grant the necessary permissions required to access your Amazon S3 resources? Oh, this is good. I saw someone put 1 and 4. Someone else put 1 and 4. Let's see. Good. Yeah, so there's ACLs, there's bucket policies, and there's user policies. Those are the 3 ways. So basically IAM, bucket policies, which basically work just like IAM, but they're assigned to the service, in this case S3, or the actual access control list, which everybody has seen as like the read write, permissions that are listed inside the bucket themselves. You can actually just click on it, right? So here's a bucket policy as an example, but you've seen user policies because they look like this, except they're attached and listed to an IAM user, right? Good. In compliance with SOX federal law, a US-based company needs to provide SOC 1 and SOC 2 reports of their cloud resources. Where does Amazon list their compliance documents? Where are their attestations and evidences listed? It's one service. It's the only one that exists. It's very unique. And every single AWS account has access to it. And it costs you nothing. So everyone listed artifacts. Let's see. And that's true. So by the way, in Artifact, it basically lists everything, all the attestations, all the certifications. from SOX, PCI DSS, HIPAA, all of them are all listed inside of the artifact service. Which of the following is one of the benefits of migrating your systems from an on-premise data center to AWS cloud? So first of all, eliminates the administrative overhead of patching the guest operating system of their EC2 instances. No, EC2 instances require you to be responsible for patching them. Number two basically says, since cloud computing is absolutely free, so let's just move on because we know that's not true. Eliminate the need for the customer to implement client-side or server-side encryption for their data. Does that really happen? Because I thought the shared security model said that basically you're responsible for encrypt, like hitting the toggle switch that says encrypt your data. Enables the customer to focus on business activity rather than on the heavy lifting of racking, stacking, and powering servers. Do you feel like there's a theme here that AWS wants you to hate your data centers? I love my little data center. It's like behind that screen back there, actually. It's all made up of Raspberry Pis, but still. Yeah, they really want you to get away from data centers. Okay. Company needs to troubleshoot an issue on their serverless application, which apparently has a number of different services like an API gateway and a DynamoDB database. Which service should they use to trace user requests? You can just stop right there. There's only one service that does tracing inside of AWS. There's one, only one. Yeah. So CloudTrail does APIs, CloudWatch does metrics, Inspector does vulnerability assessment. So that leaves X-Ray. It is the only service that does tracing at present. Okay. In AWS, which of the following is a design principle that you should implement when designing your cloud architecture? What's the best practice here? First of all, we just talked about loose coupling like a couple of questions ago, so let's just strike out number two, right? Utilize free or open source software. No. Always use large servers to anticipate increased usage. No. Using multiple AZs, well, Amazon's been pretty clear about that. They want you to use at least 2 availability zones at any given time, right? So even by elimination, we probably get that one, right? That's a long answer. Okay. Which of the following is best suited for load balancing TCP, UDP, and TLS traffic and has the capability of handling millions of requests per second while maintaining ultra low latencies? This is marketing, by the way, because while these load balancers can actually handle hundreds of thousands of requests per second, we've tested the millions theory and it doesn't actually work out that way. But there is still only one clear winner as far as a load balancer, right? Okay, let's go with everyone's guess here. Network load balancer. The network load balancer is the simplest of the 3 load balancers, and it's the only one that could even possibly get close to 1 million per second because it's not doing any analysis of the data. The application load balancer has to actually look at the URL that's encoded in the payload. And the gateway load balancer actually does deep packet inspection. So you're not going to get millions of connections per second off a gateway load balancer. So NLB is by far the one that can handle the most load. I haven't seen that picture before. Which among the services below can you use to test and troubleshoot IAM and resource-based policies? So it's interesting because I wouldn't have necessarily considered this a separate service. It's a sub underneath another service, right? But how can you test and troubleshoot IAM and resource-based policies? How can you test and troubleshoot policies, right? So Amazon Inspector is a vulnerability assessment tool, which we affirmed earlier in another question. Systems Manager has got like 11 tools underneath it, which all of them basically are used to manage systems. So that doesn't have anything to do with policies. Config tracks configuration changes in your environment. That's what its purpose is. So even by elimination, if you didn't know what the policy simulator was, you could just guess on that one. Customer is building a cloud architecture in AWS, which should scale horizontally or vertically in order to automatically adjust capacity and maintain steady, predictable performance at the lowest cost. Which of the following statements are true regarding horizontal and vertical scaling? So basically, they want you to define the two choices that define horizontal and vertical scaling. So which two? So vertical scaling is when you upsize a box, which means you make it larger. So upgrading to a higher EC2 instance is a vertical scaling because you're making the building bigger, right? So you're actually making a bigger server. With horizontal scaling, you're actually adding more buildings. You're adding more engines, more horses to the race, if you will. So adding more EC2 instances to your resource pool would be horizontal scaling. Any questions about that one? Seems like you guys got that one. Alexa, disable. Sorry, hope nobody has their stuff on speaker. Yeah. Which of the following are defined as global services in AWS? So which of these, when you use them, like you immediately are doing it globally, right? Not just in a region, not just in an availability zone. Which of these, when you set it up, you're defining it for your entire account the world over? So I see someone put 3 and 5, right? And I guarantee that's right. It's got to be. Because IAM is a global service. You create a user, and in every single region, you can use that user. CloudFront is a global content delivery network service. So when you set up a CloudFront distribution, unless you geofence it, which you can, you are setting it up for the world, not just for one region. Which, by the way, you could limit it to one region, but it operates globally. I had some students today in a boot camp that we were running for cloud, set up their CloudFront distribution to only be in the United States, which I thought was pretty genius, actually. Okay, we're gonna do a few more, and then I actually have an evaluation that you can fill out. So I'm gonna make sure I take the last like 7 minutes or so to do that. It's just a FYI. Which of the following services are part of the AWS serverless platform that does not require provisioning, maintaining, and administering servers for backend components? This one's a little tricky, actually. You have to know a little bit about the services, right? So 2 and 4, as far as I know, the rest of these require you to actually stand up either what's called nodes or EC2 instances, which is really just nodes. It's just code for EC2 instances. So as far as I know, these are the only ones that are truly serverless. Let's see. Lambda or Lambda at Edge, and then API Gateway fit the mold for this. Good. Last few. Which of the following is a fully managed database in AWS that can be used to store JSON documents? I don't know. I would think any of them could store JSON, really. But it says fully managed. So which of these is fully managed? There's only one. Although they say that, just so we're clear, there is now a serverless version of Aurora. So note that technically today, you could actually get to a fully managed RDS style database using Aurora, but they're probably asking about 3 DynamoDB. That's usually the one they go for. You could store JSON documents inside of a relational database, but it'd probably be a little weird. A space agency is using Amazon S3 to store their high resolution satellite images and videos every day. Which of the following should they do to minimize the upload time? So how do you make it so that large files upload faster? There's 2 ways to do it in S3. One is the S3 transfer acceleration, which they're not listing here as an answer. But there's another way that you can actually like make transfers go faster. Let's see. Using a multi-part upload API is probably correct because that would allow you to divide the upload into multiple components that then upload simultaneously. And you might say, well, Michael, isn't it just the same bandwidth? Well, what if it's capped, like a single file transfer is capped at like 20 megabits and you've got 200 megabits of connectivity? If you run multiple connections, you could get up to your 200 megabit cap, right? A new AWS customer needs to deploy up to 100 T3A large EC2 instances in a recently launched VPC, which is way beyond the default service limit. What should you do before launching these instances? Now, I want you to know that technically the right answer here was true probably like a year or 18 months ago. It's no longer true today. I'm gonna tell you what the right answer is. Well, the true answer today. Now, we know that we've hit the default service limit. How do you change? What is only one of 2 ways to change default service limits? One, and the new way to do it is to use the service quota service in AWS, which allows you to now request an increase from directly inside your account. The other way is listed here, and this is the old way of doing it and the way we've done it for almost 10 years, if not 15 years. Let's see. Use trusted advisor was what somebody listed. The only problem with that is I'm going to hit check on that is that trusted advisor is only used to advise. You can't actually configure anything. You actually have to create a case in the support center to request a limit, or you can go to service quota, which is inside everybody's dashboard, and just go in and say, hey, I'd like to start 100 instances. Can you approve this? Amazon usually takes less than an hour. Sometimes it takes up to 12 to approve an increase. It just depends on the nature of the increase. I'm surprised they list that there because they literally have a service quota service inside of AWS that now does this. But that's also technically a right answer. You could open a support case. Okay, which of the following is a valid characteristic of an IAM group? I wish number 3 was correct. Just so you know, you can't nest groups inside of groups. Unfortunately, you can do that in almost every other user management service I've ever seen, like Active Directory, but you can't do it on AWS, which is unfortunate. All right, so groups can be nested, so we know that. There's a default group that includes all users. No. There's no limit to the number of groups you can have. That's actually not true either, right? So it really is actually that a user group can contain many users and a user can belong to multiple groups. Let's see. What is the limit for? Oh, they didn't list it. That's too bad. There is actually a limit. I think it's like 5,000 or something, but I can't remember exactly. All right, last one. in the AWS shared responsibility model, whose responsibility is it to patch the host operating system of an EC2 instance? We actually referred to this earlier. Do you want to remember? Whose responsibility is it to patch the operating system of an EC2 instance? Well, if you can log into it or you can control it, then you're responsible for it. So if you can log into the operating system, then you're responsible for patching it. So it's going to be the customer. Now notice it says host operating system. I hope they're not talking about the hypervisor, but let's just check and see what they say. Shit, they are talking about the hypervisor, pardon my French. So in this case, they were actually talking about the host operating system, which honestly, they should have said hypervisor because that's really confusing language. Amazon's responsible for the hypervisor operating system, not I don't know, that host is a little weird. If it was the, I guess, operating system of an Amazon EC2 instance, then I guess it would be the customer. In this case, they are referring to the actual hypervisor that runs all the virtual machines. So that would be AWS. All right. Let's see, it is 5:55. So let me do this really quick, is that I'm going to post a link. Let's see, evaluations. Okay, so let me stop sharing. First of all, thank you, by the way, for attending these sessions with me. This recording will be up usually by 8 a.m. in the morning. This is the evaluation for the last, whatever weeks that you've been here, right? 6 weeks now. And so this is the class evaluation for this whole piece. If you don't mind, fill it out. Improvements, changes, struggles, praise, whatever you want to say, as long as you're respectful, we're cool with anything. Don't worry, you can get fierce as long as there's no cursing. We save that for actual class. Meanwhile, let me just leave you with this, is that if you could fill that out, that would be awesome. This would be great for Victoria to get feedback and whatnot. The other thing is that I know that a lot of you have not had priority to take your exams. And I know that NGL is definitely in need of people to achieve a certain level of certification because it's one of their strategic goals, especially for this particular department, right? So all I can encourage you is that our pacing here might have been a little too intense, especially given that people have lives and work and COVID and all that other stuff, right? But I would encourage you to not stop. So even if it takes you another 3 to 6 weeks to be comfortable, please keep sticking on with the resources, keep doing the study, form your own groups, whatever you need to just keep going, because you actually, even if it's been light, you have built 6 weeks worth of momentum. So just keep going, right? Even if all you've done is shown up and just gone through the questions and just absorbed the material that way, that's been some momentum built, right? So I just encourage you to just keep on going. I understand that everybody's super busy and information overloaded and it's just crazy, right? So again, I would just encourage you to keep going. If you need support, post into Basecamp, or you can actually just send me a message directly at michael.forrester, which I will post in here at webhsolutions.com. And we can hop on the phone together, right? So I know that sounds weird because it's well, aren't you supposed to be charging us for all this stuff? And it's sure. But this is also my mission in life, is to democratize technologies and kind of help people kind of do their thing. And I do this for people the world over. Even people who work at Amazon come and train with me in order to pass their certifications. So just know that if you need help and assistance, just ask. And enough of you ask, then we'll just set up an impromptu class and I'll just invite you all to it. We'll just coordinate with Jana and we'll figure it out, okay? So stay connected with the Basecamp. So if you don't have notifications turned on, you might want to turn them on. Don't worry, I'm not going to spam you. But if I set up a class and say, hey, everybody come, there it is, come, right? Otherwise, it's been a pleasure. Does anyone have any closing comments or anything else they need from me before we close out the class? Okay. Well, it's been great. If you can fill it out, awesome. Otherwise, I'll see you the next time that we're going around or at any other class that we do at NGL. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Oh, and please post when you pass. Would love to know, right? Post when you pass. That would be awesome. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a great Wednesday, and thank you so very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Great. Thank you, Michael.